This week's encouraging truth isn't going to seem like it's very encouraging, but it actually really is. Today I want to talk about getting comfortable in situations. Sometimes we just wait for things to get better, but what if they never actually do get better? I want to encourage you today to say, you're still going to be okay. Join us. Good morning. Welcome to our Encouraging Truth series. Glad you're joining us. Today, I want to talk about something that isn't going to seem very encouraging. It is when you really think it through, but on the front end, it doesn't really feel like it. So, Encouraging Truth number 77 says this. Don't get too comfortable because life is filled with ups and downs. Okay? It doesn't seem very encouraging. I totally get that. But the problem is that we live life on this earth and we tend to think that someday life is going to get better. Someday the kids are going to grow up. They're going to stop talking back to us. My spouse will grow up and stop talking back. My boss will appreciate me. Someday the boss is going to appreciate me. Someday the teacher is going to give me a good grade. Someday I'm going to start feeling better. Someday my marriage will get better. Someday we actually will stop arguing. And see, all of those things are really, really good things to hope for, but we live in a fallen world. And we live in a fallen world where a lot of times those things don't actually happen. So, because life never ever stands still, we probably need to get a new perspective on life and stop being depressed all the time, like life is just not going my way and things just aren't going good for me, and when's life going to get better? And we're going to learn that lesson today from the Israelites who are on their way out of Egypt. The Israelites had been stuck in Egypt for over 400 years. They had been in bondage to Pharaoh. They were basically Pharaoh's slaves. And now they're free. Moses went in, got them out, and they're on their way to their new homeland in Israel to start a new life. They probably thought like we think on things like, oh my gosh, it's going to get better. My life is going to get better. For them, it was like, I'm going to go to a land filled with, milk and honey. I'm going to not have hard labor anymore, but I'm going to enjoy what I do because I'm going to build a house for my family. We're going to be able to raise our kids like normal people raise their children. And then for them, finally, they could worship their God. They couldn't do that in Egypt. For once in their life, finally, they just look forward to freedom and rest and relief, a well-deserved break for this people group. Some of you feel just like the Israelites. Finally, your child graduated. Yay! Finally, the court battle is over with. The divorce and custody battle's done. Finally, you have money in the bank. Finally, your sickness is in remission. Finally, your pain is gone. Finally, you love your husband again. Finally, the kids have grown up and left home. Finally, the depression is gone. Finally, the adult child gave their life to Jesus. Finally, my husband got a job. And see, if that's you, some of you, you're in the same place as the Israelites were. Finally, peace and rest, and we're just ready for vacation. But what we learned today is this. Don't settle in quite yet, because it might not actually be over. Don't settle in, because life is just filled with ups and downs from the day we're born until the day we die. We learn this valuable truth about the ups and downs of life from a man, J. Paul Getty, the richest man in the world at this time. We saw this movie about his life, and at this particular time in his life, he was the richest man. All you have to do is watch the movie to see how, I don't know that you really want to win the lottery or any of those things. But it was just a reminder to me of how life changes. Sometimes when you see things like you're like, oh, I'm going to have money, life's going to get better, and then something bad happens. This is just life. Getty's son, John Paul, and his wife, Gail, They had 3 children. So I'm going to show you how this up and down life of the Gettys played out. John Paul and his wife had 3 kids, but the problem is they were estranged from their dad. So that would be like the down part of life. They're destitute, they don't have any money, their dad won't help them. And then all of a sudden, he sends a letter to his dad, and his dad offers him a job. So now it's up, yay, things are looking up, I have a job. But the problem is then John Paul goes to Italy, but now, you know what? He becomes a drug addict, so now it's down. Then he finds another woman, down. That didn't go so well for Gail. So now Gail's alone with all the kids. Her son, John Paul III, is 16 and gets kidnapped, okay? This could not just get worse. Now it's really down. The kidnappers want $16 million, but they're like, yeah, well, you know, my dad, my father-in-law, you know, this kid's grandpa, he's a gazillionaire. Like, of course he'll come through with the money. But no, that didn't happen. They felt elated for a moment because they were like, yes, you know, Grandpa's going to give the money, but he didn't, and now that's a really down thing. So you know what the kidnappers do? They cut off this kid's ear. It's disgusting. Grandpa finally pays up. The kid finally gets released, up. But then, you know, there's the stroke. That's down. Now this woman has to take care of her invalid son until he dies. I mean, this is just up and down of life. And you're like, you don't expect that for someone who has all the money in the world and all my life is going to be just great. It doesn't work like that, no matter how much money you have. But the biggest problem with the Getty story is that they didn't have God in their life. It was all just this random fate, these horrible things, up, down, up, down, up, down. But for you and I, as followers of Jesus, it's completely different. See, we believe that in the ups and the downs, that God is still leading us. That God is leading us. The Israelites and you and I have this promise. Exodus 13:20 says this, after leaving Succoth, they camped at Etham on the edge of the desert. By day, the Lord went ahead of them in a pillar of cloud to guide them on their way, and by night, in a pillar of fire to give them light, so that they could travel by day or night. Neither the pillar of cloud by day nor the pillar of fire by night left its place in front of the people. God was leading. God was leading them in front of them and going behind them. And that's the same promise that God has for you and I. If you're a follower of Jesus, Romans 8:14 says this, because those who are led by the Spirit of God are sons of God. Like God promises that he's leading us, not that we're always going to have a perfect life, not that things are always going to be good, because the Bible doesn't say that. Jesus says, in this world, you will have trouble. That's just what's going to happen. So how can we maneuver through this world up, down, up, down, up, down, on a level playing field, with a smile on our face, whether it's good or whether it's bad? I got an email from a girl one time, and she said, Lisa, I'm going in for an MRI. I need to find out what's wrong with me. Can you pray? And I said, absolutely, but here's the deal. No matter what you find out, God has never taken his eyes off of you, and he's still leading you. That's just the way it works. God is still leading you. He still has a purpose in the bad, even when you don't feel like what's happening is even remotely a good thing. But think of the Israelites. They're so excited to get out of Egypt and get into their homeland. But you can imagine them singing, high-fiving each other, dreaming about their new home. Pharaoh was in their rearview mirror. Egypt was in their rearview mirror. Like they're like, you know what? We're not going back there again. And yet, things are about ready to take a turn. Things aren't going to go the way they thought. And here's what you and I learn from this story, is that, you know what? Our perspective in life has got to change. It just has to. Because someone like the Gettys, they don't have a God perspective, but someone that's a follower of Jesus, we do. And that's a really good place to be. See, for you and I, when bad things happen in our life, here's what the Bible said in 2 Corinthians 5:7. For we walk by faith, not by sight. The Message says it like this. It's what we trust in but don't yet see that keeps us going. And that's what a life of faith is. Like, I'm going to trust in God, not what's just right in front of me. Because there's a lot of bad things that are going to happen in our lifetime that's right in front of us, but we have to be able to put God in the equation. See, the Israelites were going to learn really fast that things are going to go bad real quick. Their little easy-peasy journey to their homeland was about to take a drastic turn. Exodus 14 says this, verse 1, "Now the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, 'Tell the sons of Israel to turn back, camp before Pi-Hahiroth between Migdal and the sea. You shall camp in front of Baal-Zephon opposite it by the sea.'" Now, great. We have all this, this is where they are if you're going to look at a map. But if you look at a map, it will all make sense. Because God warns them what's about ready to happen. They're in front of the sea. They're hemmed in by all these mountains. And verse 3, God says to Moses, "For Pharaoh will say of the sons of Israel, 'They're wandering aimlessly in the land. The wilderness has shut them in. Thus I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and he will chase after them. And I will be honored through Pharaoh and all his army, and the Egyptians will know that I am the Lord.' And they did so." We're like, serious, God? Like, that's how you're going to play this? Why would you get the Israelites out of Egypt? Why wouldn't you just let them get home? Get them into their land? Wasn't Pharaoh like a thing of their past? Wasn't your ex-husband the thing of the past? Why is he showing up at my doorstep? Wasn't your cancer a thing of the past? Why is my scan saying it's back? Why is that bitterness, that whatever it is, that was a thing of the past. Why is it reared its ugly head again? Why is Pharaoh coming back after them, after they'd already left Egypt, after they had all this hope for their new land and their new life? See, I think God is not done showing the Israelites that hey guys, you can trust me. You're going to learn to trust me in the bad situations. And here's what I learned. Without being put in scary situations, we won't know how powerful God is. We won't. Without being put in really scary situations, we will never know how powerful God is and what he can do for us. And it's a reminder that even though life was going great for them, even though life is going good for you, even though you have a reprieve in life, someday everything might change. And when it changes, what happens is we start questioning God. Questioning God. Why are you doing that to me? Why are you letting Pharaoh come back? Why did you let this happen in my life again? Why did this sickness, whatever it is, now we start questioning God. But what we need to do is learn from the Israelites and see this. God knew exactly what he was doing. Leading the Israelites to the Red Sea with mountains surrounding them, God knew exactly what he was doing. When the Holy Spirit was leading Jesus into the wilderness for 40 days, that wasn't a shock. God knew exactly what he was doing. When God led Joseph to prison, God knew exactly what he was doing. When God was leading the disciples to the middle of the sea in this big storm, God knew exactly what he was doing. See, if God's leading you to that breakup, God knows exactly what he's doing. If God's leading you to that job termination, you know what? God knows what he's doing. If he's leading you not to make the cheer squad, leading you not to go to the college you thought you were going to go to, God knows exactly what he's doing. And see, for me, knowing that is really, really comforting. Even if something really scary comes up. And what's about to happen to the Israelites is really scary. Verse 5 says this, "When the king of Egypt was told that the people had fled, Pharaoh and his servants had a change of heart towards the people, and they said, 'What is this we've done? We've let Israel go from serving us.'" He's like, "Are you kidding? We just let our entire million people workforce walk right out of here. We can't have that." Rob was working on a business deal one time, and we had a deal with this particular company, and Rob shook hands on a price, moved forward, and then right before the deal was to close, they changed the price. They changed everything. And I was so frustrated, and I was like, "God, why would you do this? Why would you let this happen to us?" I mean, honestly, if people make a commitment and shake hands, they should keep their commitment. If Pharaoh said, "Let the people go," he should have kept his commitment. But I believe this. God wants us to learn to be content no matter what happens. We have to learn to be content whether we get what we want or we don't. We need to be content in life, the ups of life, the downs of life. We just have to. God is leading us through all of them. Philippians 4:11 says this, "Not that I speak from want, for I have learned to be content in whatever circumstances I am. I know how to get along with humble means. I know how to live in prosperity. In any and every circumstance, I've learned the secret of being filled and going hungry, both of having abundance and suffering. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me." He's saying, whether good or bad, I can do all things. In the midst of the bad, in the midst of the sickness, in the midst of the divorce, whatever it is, I can do everything because God is strengthening me to do it. See how that works? See, I think God wants us to get to the point where no matter what comes our way, loss of material possessions, loss of a relationship, loss of jobs or money, that we say, God, I am content wherever you have me. I had to learn this with the business deal. And honestly, I fought and fought and cried, and I'm just like, this just isn't fair and this is ridiculous. Until finally I had to learn and say this, God, I am content with whatever you give us. And when I moved to the contentment stage, I was fine. For the Israelites, verse 6 says this, "So he made his chariot ready, Pharaoh, took his people with him, took 600 select chariots, and all the other chariots of Egypt with officers over all of them. The Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and he chased after the sons of Israel as the sons of Israel were going out boldly. Then the Egyptians chased after them with all the horses and chariots of Pharaoh, his horsemen and his army, and they overtook them camping by the sea." Imagine this next scene. Here they are. They think they're on their way to the new land of Israel, the land of promised with milk and honey. They're so excited. And suddenly they hear a noise. And they all look up to see this monster army of Pharaohs chasing after them, and they're almost upon them. Verse 10 says this, "As Pharaoh drew near, the sons of Israel looked, and behold, the Egyptians were marching after them, and they became very frightened. So the sons of Israel cried out to the Lord." I bet they were crying something like this, "How is it that you're leading us by a cloud by day and fire by night? Hello, do you not see what's going on back here? What are you thinking, God? You say you're leading us, but Pharaoh's right there. Aren't you supposed to lead us by still waters? I don't feel like we're by a very still water right now. I don't feel very safe. This army is getting ready to overtake us." But the great thing that happened is the Israelites had to do one thing. They had to look up. They were forced to look up. They were forced to say this, "Hey, God, if you don't do something, we're all going to die." See, there comes a point in every one of our situations that we have that choice. Panic, cry, carry on, freak out, whatever it is, or look up and say, "God, I know you are in the midst of this trial. I am going to give this over to you and trust you to do what needs to be done. God, the Egyptians are upon us. God, you know what needs to be done." They were put in a position where they were forced to ask God to help. See, for me, I realize the importance of bad things that happen in my life. Because when my life goes smoothly, when things are going great and there's no problems, I forget about God. I just do. It's just natural to do. I'm fine, happy, no problems. Forget to pray, forget to thank God for his blessings. Which is why we need to remember this, which is our encouraging truth. Don't get too comfortable, because life is filled with ups and downs. All through the Bible, we see it. And if we can see God in both the ups and the downs, I think the down times are almost the best times. Because those are the times that we are forced to cling to God, forced to trust him, forced to turn to him. If you're struggling with your ups and downs, go into the Psalms. Read about King David. And what he comes to realize is this in Psalms 9:9. "The Lord is a refuge for the oppressed, a refuge in times of trouble. Those who know your name, God, those who know your name, trust in you because you have not abandoned those who seek you, Yahweh. Never stop seeking him when you feel like the Israelites are at the Red Sea with the enemy right on your heels. Because he will come through, but it may look a little different than you ever expected. But in the end, it doesn't matter. Because if you always keep God in the forefront, you will come out on the other end blessed because you will be closer to him. Hope that helps. Have a really good day.